Bonjour, Ozawagi Shikdish Nakas, Name Dotim, Migazi Sagigan Dochi. My name is Lloyd Napish. I'm a community member of Eagle Lake First Nation, and I'm proud to call Dryden my home as well. I've gone to school here, I've been involved with various local organizations, and I've worked here for pretty much close to a decade. I just wanted to bring to your attention an issue that has come up in the past, but we haven't really seen much action on. I'm talking about Colonization Avenue. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal? It's just a street name. It was named that by people from many, many years ago. People I'm not related to, so why should I care? Well, in this video, I've gathered local Indigenous voices and some non-Indigenous voices to raise some awareness about this issue.
To define colonization, it's when like a colonizer basically conquers an area of land and takes control over the indigenous people of that area, and that's kind of why we don't want a street in our city to be named Colonization, because that's what it stands for. And we're hoping that between then and now that there would have been an understanding that colonization is really unethical and it's not something to be celebrated. I think we should celebrate that area with a different name.
So I feel if people knew the history and the connotation behind colonization, they would, at least I hope they would want to change the street name. If people knew more about Canadian history and the dark side of it, and what the Canadian government did, particularly to Indigenous children and families, by ripping them apart, segregating them, taking them away from their culture, any Canadian would want to take a small step towards rectifying that.
Somebody asked, why is Colonization Avenue, the name, such a big deal? When colonization happened in Canada, it was a great thing for the European settlers who came here. People got new land. People got new farms. People got out of oppressive circumstances and came to a country where they could observe whatever faith they wanted without oppression. For our Indigenous brothers and sisters, it was a disaster. Millions of people died. People lost their homes. They lost their land. They were forcibly relocated. It was an absolute disaster. And so when we hold events like the Little Bands tournament, when we have Indigenous housing organizations coming to town, when we have Indigenous government organizations coming here, when we have people visiting this community, and you see Colonization Avenue. Colonization for our Indigenous brothers and sisters was one of the greatest crimes in history, and it's an insult. As somebody who's lived and worked in Dryden for many, many years, I don't want to be insulting our visitors when they come here. That's not fair. It's not who we are, and it's not what we should be standing for. And so I think we should be changing the name.
The idea of changing the name of Colonization Avenue has been brought up more than once in our area over the last decade. The two most common arguments I've heard against making the change are the investment required to change the name when our city is already in tight economic shape, and the administrative hassle that it would cause for residents of the street to undergo an address change. I've also heard most people say they disagree with colonization, both in theory and in practice, and agree that it was a despicable undertaking that exists in Canada's historical past, but that colonization is just a word, and the street was named in a different time, and it wouldn't accomplish anything practical to change it. But the thing is, naming a street after something or someone in the first place is typically an act of respect or celebration, and we have to ask ourselves whether colonization is an institution that we want to respect and celebrate in our town. In 2009, our Prime Minister claimed that Canada had no history of colonialism. I was away at school at the time, and the first thing I thought of when I heard his comment on the airwaves was our Colonization Avenue in my hometown, 1,800 kilometers away, knitted neatly by name right into our infrastructure. Some may say that a street name is not worth changing because it's only a word or only a symbol, But as language-using people, we know that words and symbols matter and are powerful. The issue is that leaving it there as it is, normalizing it, and claiming it's not doing any harm, that's symbolic too.
It's no surprise that we're living in a time where we've become politically correct, sensitive. It seems like we have to watch all our words. And that, I think, is a big challenge, because I firmly believe that our ancestors of years ago were not so careful and saying what they wanted, when they wanted, how they wanted, and without even thinking that words can hurt. And we're in a time where we're becoming more sensitive to that, because hurt and causing pain is something that we don't want to do. We're also in a time of truth and reconciliation. And we have to make every effort, even small efforts, to make things right, to be inclusive, to be sensitive to each other's needs, and to make change happen.
For years now, the conversation about the Colonization Avenue street sign has come up in discussion with our students. There are many opinions that I've heard. Lots of them are feelings of outrage, shock, and trauma over the fact that it still remains up. Another thing that was surprising, though, in asking our students was the number of students that didn't actually know what the word colonization means. I'd be willing to bet there are some adults that also don't know that.
I know for a fact if I were to ask half the kids at Dryden High School what colonization means, they wouldn't know. And I'm not saying it's their fault because they weren't taught that, you know? It's the system. People are being failed by the system. And it's also up to people to educate themselves on that kind of stuff as well. I feel like if the name of Colonization Avenue was changed, that would be a step in the right direction for decolonization. It hurts me to be reminded of colonization because my grandparents were affected by residential schools, 60 scoops, and that's a trigger for them as well.
Residential schools, the 60 Scoop, and the Indian Act were all tools of colonization that led to the cultural genocide of Indigenous peoples and created a long line of intergenerational trauma that continues to affect the health and well-being of Indigenous people today. Lately, we see a lot of people reevaluating the symbols around them that promote or contribute to racism or colonialism. Change is happening, and we should follow suit. We're way overdue for it. Many other communities in our area have already made this or similar changes quite some time ago. Removing Colonization Avenue is crucial as Canada tries to take steps towards truth and reconciliation. There are many, many other things that need to change systemically, and changing a sign may seem trivial, but it sends the message to Dryden residents that our local government will not support or promote racism or colonialist ideals. It encourages those who are ignorant about the issue to educate themselves on what colonization really is and how it's a dark part of our history. It shows people that we're capable of self-reflection, growth, and change.
If Dryden is committed to building stronger relationships with Indigenous peoples, communities, and leadership, a simple and easy way to do this is to change the name of Colonization Avenue to something that celebrates or commemorates the Indigenous people whose land we live on. As treaty people, we made a deal to honor and respect the land we are on, as well as its original caretakers, the Anishinaabe. We are doing a disservice to them by maintaining a symbol that is hurtful and traumatizing. If we want to show Indigenous communities that we are striving for genuine reconciliation and respect, we, as an accepting and loving community, will move forward with changing the name of Colonization Avenue.
And it's up to Dryden, Ontario, and the citizens or the leadership and what they want to do with it. You know, maybe most don't understand it. I don't know. I can't say. You know, of non-native population don't understand it. To them, it's also just a fancy word for a street. What's the matter with the word Treaty Avenue? I think that would be more powerful for not only our own young people, but also the young people of their young people, you know, positive start to being, you know, to view each other as equals. As we all know, the old law is every person is equal.
Well, there you have it. I hope that you found this video informative and it's helped shed some light on this issue. I just wanted to give a sincere thanks and miigwech to everybody who participated in this video, and to you as well for watching. Dryden, we are capable of doing better. For the benefit of our children and all future generations, let us abolish the name Colonization Avenue. If you support this cause, please write in to Dryden City Council, share this video on social media, and talk to your family, your friends, and your peers about it. Together, we can make this change. Together, we can walk this path of reconciliation. Thank you, and miigwech.